Hi, Jeff Spira here again, and today I'm going to talk to you about mullet skiffs. Now, I ran across a book a few years back. It was called Simplified Boat Building by Harry V. Schular. And there was actually several books, and I came across it in the local Huntington Beach Public Library. This was probably the 1980s, early 1980s. And he has a flat bottom boat and a V bottom boat book. And I thought these were really fascinating. It was at the time I was starting to design. Well, I had designed a few boats, and within this V bottom boat, they talked about mullet skiffs. Now, mullet skiffs were a shape of hull that originally came out in Florida in the 1920s and 30s, and they were used for mullet fishing. Now today they use a little bit different type. They use flat bottom boats with forward mounted outboards, but back then they were a little bit different. They were V bottom boats in the bow and then flat bottom in the stern. So they would not draft very much, but they could move along pretty good in a choppy water, and they were used for commercial fishing. And typically they had round sterns. I ran across this image a few years back. This is a model of a mullet skiff from the 1930s that they used in Florida. Now, back then, it was a popular fishing method they used to collect the mullet in Florida, and they would of course eat them. They were used for food as well as for bait and other things as well. So. They typically netted them off the transom, and they needed to keep the transom clear so the nets could get pulled up into the boat, and that's why they put the forward mounted motors on the mullet skiffs today is so that you don't get the net tangled up in the props, But anyway, I thought this design was pretty interesting, and I found out later, as I was doing more research into it, that these boats were kind of popular for running rum when the Prohibition times came, and rum runners would of course move. Rum is easy to grow, and it's very popular in the Caribbean. It's grown from sugar cane, and it's easy to brew booze out of sugar, much easier than it is out of corn or wheat or some of the potatoes or some of the other things they make it out of. But because sugar ferments very quickly, so it was easy and inexpensive to make rum. So a lot of people ran this rum from the Caribbean to the U.S. when Prohibition was out. And so, they would catch them. Here's a picture of a Coast Guard cutter and a rum runner, and this is from 1930 or 31, I think. And you can see that's kind of a mullet skiff looking boat right there. So they used to put big engines in them. They had these straight 8s and straight 12-cylinder flathead 12-cylinder engines that were on some of the fancy cars that they could stick in these boats, and they would go relatively fast with these big engines in them. Now, people ask me, now if it's a really fast boat, I want to build one. Well, it was a fast boat 90 years ago in the 1930s. That's a long time ago, and to remember that at that time the Air Force, well, it was the Army Air Corps back then, was flying biplanes with fixed landing gear. So, I mean, fast then and fast now are completely different things, and the same way with boats. So a fast boat in the 1930s was not a planing hull. So they were semi-planing, sort of. They were semi-displacement hulls, and with a flattish sort of bottom in the aft section, they could they could move faster than the hull speed, which would, a deep V hull was limited to the hull speed at the time, which would, on a 30-foot boat, it's what, 7 knots or something. So it's not very much speed, but with a big engine and one of these mullet skiff sort of shaped hulls, you could get in the teens power wise. So it was pretty fast for the day, but it would not be necessarily considered so today. But these boats were, they were good and stable. They would handle rough weather as well as shallow water, and so I thought these would be great boats for today, particularly for someone looking for a boat that doesn't require much power, but you could do sea cruises or rough water cruises with. And so I've kind of took the old method, the lines drawing from Schular's book, and basic line drawing, and designed a series of boats around them so that they would be more useful today than they were at the time. And I started kind of small. I started with a 19-footer, and I call it the Tortuga, and it's can be made either with an outboard or with an inboard, and it's a good, pretty wide, and it would be a good offshore type hull, but not take a lot of power. So you could run it in the high displacement speeds or the low semi displacement speeds with not very much power, and have a great sea boat, in my opinion anyway. Again, it's not a high speed offshore, two 454 Chevys, flying over the waves kind of boat, but it would be a good cruiser in my opinion. So anyway, step up from that and we get into the 24-footer, and that's called the La Paz. Here's one you can see that was kind of built with a pretty heavy cabin in it, and it was pretty fat design. It's built as an outboard style, and it's a good sturdy offshore cruiser. And this one's being used in the Pacific Northwest right now. You can see that this hull has got a V in the forward and it's flat bottomed in the aft, and it's got some good rocker to it as well. So that means it'll displace quite nicely with fairly low power, and then also be able to get up a little bit in the speed. Now the one I really designed this around was the first one, is the 27-footer, and I call it the Chubasco. And a Chubasco is a Mexican storm. It's like a gale or something like that. And this one was kind of my favorite sort of size and shape for this hull. It was the first one, and it's a good cruiser boat, and it'll handle some inboard diesel power. It'll be a good long range cruiser, good offshore boat. So and you can see here that in the construction is pretty simple and straightforward. I've got the classic framing, and you built in my method using the multifunction ply covering and glued and bonded, and it makes a good unibody kind of hull, and it's a good stiff offshore hull, so a good strong hull. So anyway, you're welcome to take a look at these free study prints from the website, and then I've got the links right down below here. So anyway, that's the Mullet Skiff. It might be a good boat for your use, and if you like it or have any more questions about it, drop me a note, And be sure and subscribe, share, and show your friends this website if that's what you're looking at. Okay, thanks again for watching.